Hey guys, it's James here from practiceowner.com, and in this training we're going to be going through the practice scoreboard. So the practice scoreboard is a super important framework that we want you to be implementing as soon as possible after watching this training, because unless you understand the numbers of your business, there's no way for you to be able to make accurate decisions on what actions you should take. It's like trying to play a game of football or some other sport and you don't know what the score is and you don't know what minute it is in the game. If you don't know what minute it is in the game and you don't know what the score is, there's no way for you to make a decision on the strategy you should take. Are we winning the game? Are we losing the game? How far into the game is it? By how much are we winning or losing? So your practice scoreboard framework allows you to identify your numbers so you can know what actions you should be taking to move your business forward. So you all should have the practice scoreboard open, and it should look like this. Nice and color-coded to make it easy. I know that we all hate numbers, but numbers are so important in business. Now, the document is fillable, but you can also print it or do it on an iPad to make it easier. So I'm here being fancy on my iPad, and we're going to go and fill out some numbers. So with this, I'm going to go through with some numbers that I kind of invented before. But as you go through, I want you to learn this process, and then I want you to put your own numbers in here as well. So as we go and fill this out, you can either do it with my numbers and then come back and do it with your numbers, which I would recommend because going through this twice is going to be important for most of us to get our head around the concepts. Or you can fill in your own numbers as we go through. So if you need to pause this video and go and get some numbers, get your clinic software up or your accounting numbers up, go and do that now. Otherwise, let's get into it. So the first thing that we're doing here is we're working out what we call our 3-month averages. So if you look at your data as only 1 month at a time, numbers can look good or bad depending on what you did or didn't do that month. Whereas we want to look at the trend. Now, remember, the key thing with this is an average. So sometimes when people do these numbers, they say, well, James, my numbers are better than this. My numbers are, whatever. The reality is that this is an average, and the point of it being an average is it gives us an average insight into how our numbers look so we can make decisions based off of that average. If our average doesn't look very good, then on average, we're not doing that well. And some months we might be doing great, but on average, we're not. And if we're only making decisions based on months that we're doing well or months that we're doing really badly, and we're not looking at our average months, then we're not really making the right decisions. We're making scarcity-based decisions, typically when we had a bad month and, oh my gosh, I need to do something different, when in actual fact, we're on a trend and the trend is okay. So we're going to go through and fill out 3 months worth of data, and then we're going to create an average with that. So the first number that we want to fill out here is our new patients, then it's our ad spend, then it's our revenue, and then it's our total visits. And from these numbers, we're basically able to calculate all the numbers that we need to know in our business to better make better decisions. So I'm going to put in the numbers that I'd created earlier. You can go ahead and put your numbers in here, or you can do my numbers and then come back and do your numbers after. So the first is in month 1, we've got 20 new patients. We've got $1,000 in ad spend. We have $11,000 in revenue. Let me put dollar signs there to make it simple. And then we had a total of 150 visits in that month. Month 2, we've got 15 new patients, $500 ad spend, $12,000 in revenue, and 130 regular visits. Month 3, we've got 22 new patients, $800 in ad spend, $10,000 in revenue, and 140 regular visits. And so then you add all 3 in each column up, so 20 plus 15 plus 22, and then you divide that by 3 because it's over 3 months, and that gives you your average number of new patients per month. So in this case, hoping I got the math right, the answer is 18. Average ad spend is 700. Average revenue, let me see my notes here, average revenue is 11,000. And average regular visits is 140. Now, for the math geeks out there, I probably didn't do this perfect with the calculations. I'm doing this to give an example, okay? So the averages might not be exactly what that is, but just go with it. So each of these, you can see that they're color-coded, right? We've got our new patient numbers for the last 3 months. Now, when you're doing this, don't do this month if you're halfway through it. Do last month. You want to have 3 full months worth of data to do this off of, okay? If last month you were away for half the month, then don't do that month, do the previous 3 months. You want to have 3 representative months worth of data for this exercise. And you can see that they're color-coded. So new patients is yellow, ad spend is red, revenue is green, total visits is blue. To preface this as well, total visits means all the visit types that you saw cumulatively. So you might have had new patients, reported findings, reviews, whatever. You want to add up the total number of visits you had that month. Ad spend, this is, especially now that you're in our programs, it's the money you're spending on ads to go and get clients. If you're not spending money on Facebook ads and things like that, but you might be billboards, just put in the amount of money that you're spending on advertising in general. But when you get more indoctrinated with what we do here, this will be your Facebook ad budget because that's a predominant source of clients that you will have. So we're going to take these numbers, these 3 months average numbers, and we're going to insert them into the colors on the bottom. And then we're going to do the equation, and it's going to give us these calculations. Now, I've done this training before, and I know at this point it can feel overwhelming because you're thinking, holy crap, James, look at all these numbers. I want you to just go through this. If you're feeling overwhelmed, just go through it with me and then come back and re-watch it with a better understanding. And if you need to watch it 3, 4, 5 times, that's okay, because I really need you to get your head around your numbers. And if you're thinking, James, hurry up, I'm going to get moving now. So 18 was the number of new patients, all right? So I'm going to put that number in all of the yellow boxes. Perfect. The next one is ad spend. I'm going to put that in the red box. The next is revenue. I'm going to put that in the green box. And then the next was total visits, and I'm going to put that in the blue box. Then we're going to do the calculation. So I've got 11,000 divided by 18, and that gives me 611. Then I've got 700 divided by 18, and that gives me 39. And then I've got 140 divided by 18, and that gives me 8. Now, what do all these numbers mean? Well, if I've taken my average revenue per month and I divide that by the average number of new patients per month, what that gives me is the average revenue per new patient, right? Otherwise known as your lifetime value, your LTV, okay? Or you can call it whatever you want, but I call it the lifetime value or client value. And what that says is that over 3-month lifetime of that client, we make, on average, $611. You might say, well, James, some clients spend $5,000, some spend $10. Exactly. This is an average. So if you're looking at your average right now and you're thinking, oh, that's really low, the reason that it's low is because most of your new clients don't spend much money. And so all of those few that spend a lot of money, the average is being pulled down by those who don't spend any money. It's just like life expectancy in a country. How you increase life expectancy is not by getting old people to live 5 years longer. It's to get young people to live to 5 years at all. So if you go and fix infant mortality, the life expectancy of a country goes up dramatically because it's the low numbers that pull the average down. So if this number is much lower than you expected, it's because most clients are not coming back. And we're going to talk about this, but lifetime value is a great way of checking the health of your business. If your lifetime value is low, then we need to start making decisions about what you're doing to convert and retain clients, how you're packaging your services, how you're pricing yourself, okay? We'll dig into this in a little bit more in a minute, but let's move on to the next one. So the next one here is we've taken our ad spend and divided it by our new patients. So this number that it calculates here, $39, is our cost per acquisition, meaning how much money does it cost us to acquire a client. If I'm spending $700 a month on average and I'm generating 18 new patients a month on average, then the $700 bought me or purchased me 18 new patients, and therefore it cost me $39 to purchase a new patient. Now, what's cool about knowing this number? Well, if I know that my lifetime value is substantially higher than it costs me to get a client, then I'm making a lot of money. So here, it costs us $39 to buy a client that spends $611. And so now I can go to the bank and get out a whole lot of money and say, great, I'm just going to go and buy new patients for $39 because I know that they give me $611. And again, we'll talk about this more in a minute, but what does this mean? Well, if my cost to get a client is very high and my lifetime value is low, then I'm making no money for all of my effort. So I need to lower my cost to acquire a client, and I need to increase the lifetime value of a client. And the trick to this is understanding that you have more control over changing the lifetime value of a client than you do the cost to acquire a client. Everybody tries to get cheaper leads and more effective marketing. The reality is that's very hard to do. And there's a lot of effort for diminishing returns on that effort. Whereas if you put all that same amount of effort into having higher value clients, then how much it costs you to get a client doesn't matter. Because I could spend $1,000 to get a new patient, and it doesn't matter if my new patient spends $10,000, right? Whereas you're worrying about trying to get your cost to acquire a client below $100 to save $20 per new client, where it'd be much easier just to lift the lifetime value. So we'll talk about that more in a minute. So the third equation here is total visits divided by total number of new patients. What does this give us? Well, this is very similar to revenue divided by new patients, except instead of getting an answer that is in dollars, we get an answer that is in visits. So we've got 140, let me do it again. We've got 140 total visits on average per month divided by 18 new patients per month on average gives us an average patient visit number of 8, meaning that on average a patient will come and see us for 8 visits. All right, and this number and this number are equal if you multiply it by your fee structure. So if, for example, our fees are arbitrarily $100 and people average in 8 visits on average, then 8 times 100 is 800. And so this number here will equal 800. So if you look at this, let me do that again. If you look at this number here, this number is your patient visit average multiplied by your fees. All right, they work together here. Okay, so what does this mean? Well, if you're recommending 12 visits, but your average new patient is only having 8 visits, that means when you think to yourself, well, James, I recommend 12, but I have people seeing me 30 times. If you have people seeing you 30 times and you're recommending 12 visits, but your average number of visits per new patient is only 8, then most people are not coming back after their first, second, or third visit because they're leaving early and it pulls your average way down. Your patient visit average should be, this number here, should be higher than your treatment plan recommendations. Because if I'm recommending 10 visits and people are only coming for 10 visits, that means that most people, if they're coming for 10 visits on average, that means that most people are not finishing their care plans. Because I'm going to have people that have more visits than what I'm recommending, right? Maintenance care, wellness care, stage 2 care, etc. So understanding these numbers is super important because we can then make decisions around what strategy we need to implement to fix our business, okay? So now we're going to take some of these numbers on this side and we're going to plug them into this side. So everything's color-coded. So we're going to take lifetime value and we're going to plug it in over here and we're going to plug it in over here. So that's 611 and that's 611. And then we're going to take cost per acquisition and we're going to plug it into here. And we're going to plug it into here. Okay, 39 and then 39. So what does this do? Oh, we've got another LTV over here. So what does this do? Well, if I take my LTV, my average lifetime value over a 3-month period of time, how much money I'm making per client on average, per new client on average is $611, and I minus $39 from that, I get my gross profit, which is going to be equal to $572. So I made $611 and it cost me $39 to get that client. So the answer is my gross profit is $572, meaning all of the money that I generated, excluding like paying for power and water and rent, right? Just from marketing, how much money am I making? Because that's the first expense that needs to come off, is the marketing cost. Now, I would argue that marketing is not an expense, because if you didn't spend the money, you wouldn't have made the money, so it's an investment. But for the purposes of accounting, we'll talk about it as an expense. I made $611, I minus the $39 to acquire the client, I'm left with $572. So the next thing we want to look at is I've got my lifetime value of $611, and I want to this time divide it by 39. And the reason that we divide it is we say, well, if I spend $1 and I make $5, what does that look like in terms of percentage? What percentage return am I getting? In that case, it'd be 400% profit, 500% overall. So if we divide these numbers together, we get 16. So 39 divided into 611 gives us a 16 times ROI. Now, 16 is also equal to 1,600%. So you spend $1 and you generate $16 or $15 in profit. That's pretty good. So if you're looking at this number and you're getting anything above 3 to 5, you're doing well. That means you spend $1 and you're making $3 to $5 back. What investment can you make with such predictability that you can generate a 3 to 5 times return, or a 3 to 500% return? There's nothing, unless you're buying some crazy cryptocurrency that's probably going to crash and there was no certainty to it. You can't make that decision. I can't go and take $39 and produce $611 in anything else except for in my business when I know my numbers. So when you're looking at this and you're thinking to yourself, what should I be doing next? Well, if you're getting a good return and you have space in your appointment book, putting more money into advertising is probably a good idea, because for every $39 I spend, I make $611 back over the next 3 months, right? Which is a pretty good return. So the next calculation that we're going to go through here is our revenue goal divided by our LTV, right? And this is going to produce our new patient goal. So if I'm wanting to make $15,000 a month on average, so this here in the blue one here, you want to put the number that you want to make. I want to make $20,000 a month. I want to make $10,000. I want to make 15. Whatever it is, write it in here. So in this case, I said I want to make $15,000 a month on average. Knowing, of course, that right now, my average is $11,000 a month. So I want to go up by $4,000 a month extra. How many new clients am I going to need per month on average if I want to make $15,000 a month? Well, if I know that my LTV is 611, then I take my goal, I divide it by my LTV, and that gives me my new patient goal, which in this case is 25. So I know that if I want to make $15,000 a month, then I only need to get 25 new clients a month on average, because every new client on average gives me 611, so on average I would make $15,000 a month. And right now I've got 18 new clients a month on average. So I only need to increase that to 25 and I'll be doing $15,000 a month. So what we're going to do here is I want you to take a little break for a second. Pause the video. Come back in 2 minutes, get some water, jump around, refresh yourself. I know numbers are hectic for a lot of us, because what I want to do now is I want to go through these numbers and help you to think about why they matter and what we need to do with this information. Okay? So go away for 2 minutes if you need to, and then come back, and then we'll get straight back into it. So I'm assuming that you've had a break and come back, or if you're still here with me, awesome. Just make sure that if you're here with me, you're not stressed by this, because you're not going to be able to make any sense of what I'm saying right now unless you take a break and come back. So we calculated some numbers. We calculated our lifetime value per client. We calculated our cost to acquire a client. We calculated our patient visit average. We calculated our gross profit. We calculated our return on investment, and we calculated our new patient goals. So let's dig into this a little bit more. So lifetime value. This is how much money we're making per client on average. If you want to be more successful, you need to make more money per client. Okay? Cost per acquisition is how much money it costs us to get a new client. If it's costing you a lot of money to get a new client, you can look at fixing your marketing. You can look at fixing your outreach process to get those clients. Maybe you're not ringing enough of your leads. Maybe you're not doing a good job in ringing your leads. Maybe you're doing a bad job in converting people into being new patients. All of those things would influence your cost to get a client. The least important thing in that equation is actually your ads. The most important is how good you are at getting leads to book in and bookings to become clients. If you convert every booking into being a new patient, then your cost to get a client will be much lower than you trying to get cheaper leads. Okay. Patient visit average, right? If your patient visit average is nowhere near what you're recommending for people, then people are dropping out. And the reason they're dropping out is because they don't believe you as to why they should follow the plan that you gave them, or you're not giving them a plan in the first place. To fix both of those, you either go through the YES formula training, which will help you convert people into your treatment packages, or you go through the client journey planner if you don't know how to make a treatment plan. Client journey planner helps you make the treatment plans, which will increase your lifetime value of a client and increase the average number of visits you have per person. YES formula will help you convert people and retain them. Okay. Then we calculated your gross profit. This is just a way for you to visualize how much money you're actually making on your marketing efforts. Return on investment, this is just a nice way of you knowing, oh, I spend $1, I make $5, $10, $15 back for every dollar that I spend. I should probably go to the bank and get a loan and spend a hell of a lot more money because I'm very, very profitable with my marketing. And then this new patient goal was really just to say, this is how many new patients you need to hit your targets based on these current numbers. Okay. So with all of this, I'm hoping that you got your head around what these numbers mean, because we're going to talk about them a lot in this program, and I want you to understand them. So let's look at this more broadly, okay? We're going to look at the metrics that matter. And your metrics that matter are taking the numbers we just talked about and distilling them down a little bit further so you can go, all right, I know what I need to do right now to fix my business and make more money and help more people, okay? So the first metrics that matter is LTV, lifetime value per client, and CPA, cost per acquisition. Realistically, they're the only two numbers that matter, because if my cost to acquire a client is low and my lifetime value is high, I make a lot of money per client, I can go and spend a bunch of money experimenting on marketing because I know that I'm going to get a good return for that. And fundamentally, in growing a practice, you have to be able to get high-value clients into your practice to fill yourself up. And then what allows you to scale is managing your team and building systems and reducing expenses and being efficient. That's our job, is to help you with all of that. But fundamentally, if we can get you higher-value clients at low cost to acquire them, then your equation for business works very well, and you need to spend a lot more money on your advertising. So to at least fill yourself up. So LTV, where does that really come from? Now, we calculated it in the previous section, but I want to break this down further for you. The only metrics that matter for LTV is your patient visit average, PVA, and your fees per appointment. Okay? If you're charging, let's say $100 per visit, and you have a patient visit average of 10, then you're going to make $1,000 per client. So how do I increase my lifetime value? How do I do that? I increase my fees or I increase the number of visits I have per person, or I increase both. How do I increase my patient visit average? First thing I do is I go through the client journey planner so that I can actually have a treatment plan worthy of my clients to get them results over a longer period with more visits. That'll increase the number of visits I have per person. The second thing I do is I go through the YES formula. The YES formula is going to help me with converting people into my care plans and retaining them through the care plan. Okay. On top of that, there's also the refill your calendar framework, which will help you to reactivate clients who have dropped out. And there are some small things around that, but those three, client journey planner, YES formula, and refill your calendar, will help you to keep your PVA high. The next is your fees. Most of us haven't raised our fees in any reasonable period of time, and at time of recording this, inflation's a big issue. So if you haven't raised your fees even to match inflation, you're losing money. The fastest way to increase your profit margin is to increase your fees, which I'll explain soon. And so you want to be charging more. If you're not confident with that, you don't know how to do it, or you just want our help with that, I want you to go through the paid what you're worth framework. The paid what you're worth framework will help you with raising your fees, not losing clients, so you can make more money per client and have more resources to invest in your business. So the other thing is, you might say to me, well, this is all great, James, but how do I decrease my cost to acquire a client? You want to go through our leads on tap framework. You want to reach out to our tech team. You want to come to a coaching call so we can talk about it. You want to go through our lead outreach process so I can train you on the best practices for reaching out to people and booking them in. And you want to go through the YES formula because that'll help you convert people better. But I'm going to show you how to understand what you should be doing, because you might think, James, holy shit, you just gave me a bunch of stuff to do. And you're right, but you may not need to do all of it right now. So let's dig into some numbers here. Ultimately, we've got a simple formula that we need to go through to make money in our business. The first is we need leads. Leads or prospects, these are people that we can potentially help. Okay, people who have a problem that we can help and are looking for a solution and have raised their hand saying, hey, I'm interested in getting some help. The next is conversations. I'm going to put convo in there. Conversations. How many leads are we actually talking to? Because you can get 1,000 leads, but if you don't talk to any of them, none of them are going to become clients. The next part of the equation is appointments. Of the conversations, how many of them do I get booked in for appointments? And the next is clients. How many appointments am I turning into clients? A new patient is somebody that has an appointment with you, right? A client is someone who starts treatment, all right? Now, if I look at my lead to conversation percentage and then my conversation to appointment percentage and appointments to clients percentage, if those are within KPI, then I will be doing very, very well in my business, because clients times LTV equals revenue. So let's say 5 out of 10, let's make easy numbers here. Let's say 8 out of 10 leads I get, I turn into conversations. Okay, so 80% go into conversations. And then of the conversations I have, 50% of them have appointments. And then of the appointments that I have, 50% of them become clients. I've gone from 10 leads down to 8 conversations, down to 4 appointments, down to 2 clients. 2 clients. And if my LTV is $1,000, then I'm going to have made $2,000. Do you get that? Right? Because, let me highlight this here. Because leads, at 80% of them have become conversations. 50% of them have become appointments. 50% of those have become clients. And a client is worth $1,000. And so when I multiply those together, I get my revenue, which is $2,000. You see where I'm going with this, right? So if I look at this and I think, well, what do I need to do to improve my revenue? Well, let's change some of this, okay? Let's say that my conversion rate from leads to conversations is only 20%, and I leave everything else the same. Then instead of 8 conversations, I'm going to have 2 conversations, right? So instead of 8, I'm going to have 2. And then 50% of those will turn into appointments. So I'm only going to have 1 appointment. And of that, only 50% will turn into clients. So I will have, 0.5 in this case, but if I made this 20, then I would have 1, all right? And then of that, I'm only going to make $1,000. So my revenue would only be, with this strange math, $500, right? Half of $1,000, $500. So my solution then is to make my lead to conversation rate higher. What can I do to increase the number of conversations I have with my leads? I can ring them more, I can text them more, I can chase them more, right? All of those things would improve the number of conversations I had. Well, what if all of this was great? So I had, 80% of people talking to me. I had 100% of people having appointments, and I had 100% turn into clients, but my LTV was only $200. What if that was the case? Well, my numbers are going to look very, very different. So 10 leads would turn into 8 conversations, 8 appointments, 8 clients, and at $200 each, I would make $1,600. But you'll notice that previously, with only 50% appointments into clients and whatever, I was making more money. Why? Well, you should know the answer. The reason why is because my LTV was much higher. So in this equation, what most people get wrong is they think, oh, I'm going to try and improve my lead conversation rate, right? I'm going to actually talk to more of my leads. The truth is, I need to increase my lifetime value. And how do I do that? Client journey planner to have more appropriate treatment plans. Yes formula so that I can sell it at a higher price, because most of us, if we just raise our rates, raise our packages, we don't actually convert people necessarily as well. Because there's probably a reason why 100% of people said yes, because it's only $200, right? Which is not good. And then I want to look at my reactivations, my refill your calendar frameworks. There's a few things we'll look at, because if we can increase this, right, by 10x and make it $2,000, then suddenly I made $16,000 instead of $1,600 from the same numbers. My marketing is now 10 times more effective, not because I did any better marketing, but because I made my lifetime value better. Okay? So I want you to play with these numbers yourself. You can stick your own numbers in and you can think, all right, what are my calculations? But fundamentally, KPIs at the moment as it stands is you should be speaking with at least half of your leads. Okay? And at least half of the people that you talk to should be having appointments. And of the appointments you have, at least 80% of them should be starting treatment with you. Okay, and your lifetime value target is at least $1,000. If we can get your lifetime value to $1,000, then you're going to have a decent margin. And so you're not going to be affected so much by rising or fluctuating marketing costs. You're going to have more margin built into everything that you do. So you're not so close to the bone every time when you're doing this stuff. So let's move to the next section, the margin matrix. The margin matrix is really just about helping you to understand what I'm talking about when I say the word margin. You're going to hear us say the word margin a lot. We're going to ask you, what's your margin? The reason we do this is because we want to have these broad calculations that we can do to say, well, my margin's about 50%. So I know that if I, make 100 grand, I'm going to keep 50. Okay. Knowing your margin is really important because, again, your margin will dictate what strategies you need to use to solve the problems in your business. If your margin is bad, then I'm going to say lower your expenses and increase your lifetime value per client. If your margin is good, then I'm going to say invest in team and systems, even if it increases expenses, because you've got a thick margin and you can weather the storm while you try and improve other aspects of your business. Because businesses that are run really tight and have poor margins are hard to grow because you have no wiggle room. It's like, James, I can't spend money on marketing. I can't do this because you make no money. So we need to have a thick margin so that you can come into a program like this and not worry about the fees, so that we can work together and actually fix it. Or you can invest in marketing, or you can hire that person or buy that equipment because your margin is good. So let's look at your margin matrix. So with the margin matrix, all we're doing here is we're taking revenue, which in this case, I'm going to put 100,000, minus our expenses, which in this case, I'm going to put 25,000, equals our gross profit. Gross profit doesn't factor in tax and things like that, right? 75,000. And then I'm going to take our gross profit, GP, which is 75,000. This one comes over here. 75,000. And I'm going to divide that by our revenue, which is this one. And it's going to come over here. And so if that's 100, and it's going to give us an answer here of 75%. Now, if your margin is not at least 50%, then we need to look at how you're pricing and packaging your services, or how you're running your expenses, because you are revving the engine too hard for the speed that you're going. Low margin means there's a lot of overhead costs that are eating profit relative to the value per client. So we need to lower your expenses and we need to increase your the amount of revenue that you're generating so that your margin gets better. A healthy margin is at least 50%, ideally more than that. If it's less than that, it's not necessarily a bad thing because every industry is slightly different. And depending on the phase of business that you're in, it's how we make a decision around it is different. But we want to have as healthy a margins as possible because we want to be as leveraged as possible. I don't want to put, 50 hours into my business and only make $1,000. That's not very leveraged. I want to put 50 hours in and I make $5,000, and then next month I'm making $6,000, and then 2 years later I'm making $10,000 for the same 50 hours, because the leverage in my business should be growing and my efforts should be producing more reward as I keep growing. And that's a big part of this program, is teaching you how to do that. So we're going to go through an exercise here because we've talked about how you can, increase revenue. The way you increase revenue is by increasing our LTV, decreasing our cost to acquire a client. That will increase our gross profit from marketing and things like that, right? The other side of the equation is to decrease our expenses. So we're going to go through the cost cutter framework now, which is going to help you identify opportunities for you to cut costs and increase your margins. So there are two types of costs. We've got fixed costs and then we've got variable costs. A variable cost is like a contractor, right? I'm paying them 50%. So if they make more money, then the cost increases, but it's proportional, but it varies, right? Another variable cost is ad spend. Now, marketing is not a cost, okay? It's an investment because you're making money off of it. And if you didn't spend the money, you wouldn't have made the money. But for an accounting purposes, ad spend is a cost. So my ad spend will go up and down, but it's relative to how much I'm making if I'm doing it efficiently. So reducing ad spend is not going to help me grow my business. It'll increase my margin in the short term because I won't be spending money on ads, but then I won't be getting any new clients, so it will decrease my margin in the long term, all right? And then you've got perishables. I'm not going to be able to spell this properly. Perishables. Let's just scribble it. It's good enough. Perishables. Perishables are the things that you're using in the course of your business. Pens and paper and oils and all that kind of stuff, right? They're the things that will vary depending on how busy you are or not and how much you're using. Then we've got fixed costs. Fixed costs like rent or staff or mostly utilities, because the utilities are kind of variable in that if you're busier, you might use more power. But for most of us, the lights are on whether we're using the room kind of or not. And so if the room's producing a lot more income, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm using more lights. So I would kind of consider that to be more of a fixed cost than a variable, because it varies, but only to a point, and then it doesn't vary after that. So a fixed cost is something that doesn't change. Your rent is your rent. $5,000 a month, it's always $5,000 a month. Whether I make $100,000 that month or whether I make $0 that month, my rent is the same. Staff, pretty fixed. It can vary to a point, but it's not as variable as contractors, where depending on how much they make, the expense will change. Whereas with staff, whether you make a lot of money or not a lot of money, your staff costs are relatively fixed. You've got coaching and mentoring with us, and then you've got things like licensing, right? Coaching is a fixed cost because if you start with us and you 10x the growth of your business, your investment with us doesn't 10x with it. We don't charge you more because you make more, right? Our job is to get you in and the cost is higher, and then we grow your business and now the cost is relatively lower. So the longer you stay with us, the more you work with us, the more you grow your business, the better margin you have on your cost to be a part of the program versus your income. So you get a stronger return on investment the longer you work with us, the more you grow your business, because the cost stays fixed. Same thing with rent, right? You can make more money out of your business, your cost doesn't go up with rent. So why am I telling you these things? Well, if you are not utilizing your fixed costs effectively, then they eat into your profit margin a lot more. If you better utilize your fixed costs, then they can produce more income for you. If you have 5 rooms in your clinic for $5,000 a month and you only use one of them, then your income potential is lower than if you use all 5, but your rent doesn't change. Your rent is your rent, but if you better utilize the space, you can make more money from it, right? So looking at all of these, fixed costs and variable costs, what I want you to do on the left-hand side here is I want you to fill out what you could do without, and on the right, you're going to do what could be better utilized. So for example, maybe right now you have 50 hours of staff, but you could probably shave off 10 hours. They're not really doing anything. You could probably drop someone to part-time or something like that. So maybe you could do without 50 hours worth of staff and just have 40 hours worth of staff. That would save you in costs. You've got 7 rooms. Maybe you could rent one of those rooms, right? Which is both better utilization, but also I'm doing without the extra room because I don't need 7 rooms because I'm not using it. So let me go and either give it back to the landlord or rent it out, which would be where you use it better, okay? Then you've got 10 practitioners. Maybe you could get rid of 2 of them because they're not really doing anything. And even though you could say, well, they're not an expense, they're a mental expense. You're thinking about them, all right? You're worrying about them. You're stressing out. Maybe they're taking up space. So get rid of some practitioners that are extra in your business. What could be better utilized? Well, your contractors. I could book them more densely. I could just fill them up in the first place. I could condense their hours. I could get rid of some of the slack people who are not doing a good job and give those clients to the ones who are doing a better job and better utilize the available space, and then rent out the extra room that was previously filled by somebody who wasn't profitable, right? I could sublease one of the rooms to create some rent. I could better utilize my staff by training them, right? So rooms, staff. Maybe I could get them to ring leads or do some administration for me. Or coaching. maybe I could attend more calls, I could watch more training modules, I could ask for help more, and you could better utilize us so we can help you grow. There's been many times where clients have dug themselves a hole, jumped in it, cried about being in a hole. When we finally spoke to them, we gave them a 3-step plan. They were out of the hole and their business was booming. And they realized, crap, I should have asked you for help 3 months ago. And the answer is yes. You want to raise your hand before you're drowning. You want to raise it when you feel uncomfortable, because then we can jump and we can guide you and we can say, you know what, you're not drowning. You're fine. Or we can say, you know what, yeah, you were on a path to drown. Now we can take you off that path. So better utilizing coaching with us means that you get a stronger return for your investment, but you actually make money. Because if you had all the answers and you knew what to do, then you'd be doing it. And if you know what to do and you're not doing it, then you've got bigger problems. And that's the whole point of mentoring and coaching, is that we can guide you through that. All right. But I want you to think about this. What other costs do you have that you're not using? Additional software, billing companies, right? Advertisements that you're paying for, SEO, things that aren't being tracked. And then when you track them, you realize that they're not producing. Get rid of them. Things that are there, but you don't really need them, posture scanning machines and all kinds of stuff. Maybe you spend 10 hours a week doing posture analysis with your staff, and you could just get rid of posture analysis. It wouldn't affect your conversion rate, and you can get rid of 10 hours worth of staff costs, and now your margin's better. So I want you to really have a think about these variable costs, these fixed costs, and what could be better utilized, and what could you do without. So we can lower your expense, right? Lower your expenses so that you have an increase in profit. Okay. Outside of that, I want you to think about what your next steps are. Now that we've gone through this practice scoreboard, what are your next steps? Maybe you're going to, some learnings you've got to go through. You've got to go through the client journey planner. Client journey, right? Maybe you've got to go through the paid what you're worth. Excuse my handwriting. Paid what you're worth. Or the yes formula. Maybe you need to go through your refill your calendar. Right? What are some, maybe you need to ask us some questions. What are your actions? I'm going to go through the yes formula first, and then I'm going to come to a coaching session about it and get some help. How am I going to keep myself accountable? I'm going to go and post in the group with my learnings from today. What did you learn from this module that got you thinking, that you maybe hadn't thought of before or thought about in a while or didn't realize? And how can you execute on that better? All right, so go post in the group so we can hold you accountable. Maybe you're going to come to a coaching course, we can hold you accountable. Maybe you're going to find a partner in the group to hold each other accountable. You both suck at tracking your numbers and you're going to hold each other accountable. Maybe I'm going to check my numbers once a month and see where I'm at. Okay, but I want you to come up with some learnings that you need to do, some actions you're going to take, and some ways you're going to generate some accountability, and you're going to implement. The biggest thing to getting success is implementation, and the symptoms of our struggles tend to align with the things that we're not good at and don't like doing. And we tend to not be good at them because we don't like them, so we never spent time on them, and we tend to not like them because we're not good at them. So when you're feeling resistance against something, whether it's marketing or sales or packaging or pricing or numbers or coaching your team, and you're like, oh, I don't want to do that, it's probably the thing that you need to do. So come to a call, let's work on it. I'm hoping this is giving you a ton of clarity around your numbers. You're probably feeling overwhelmed and your head's about to burst. I give you permission to take some time to refresh yourself, and then I want you to potentially look at coming back and redoing this again with a fresh set of eyes and ears. Now that you've gone through it once, go through it again and again. I want you to really understand your numbers. This is super important. Take care, and I'll see you in the next module.